Most people think millionaires work harder than everyone else. They imagine endless hours, sleepless nights, and an intensity that burns hotter than the average person can sustain. But the truth is far more interesting and far more useful. Millionaires are not defined by how hard they work, but by how differently they think. While most people are trading time for money, millionaires are trading ideas for money. While others measure success by effort alone, millionaires measure by leverage, by how much result they can produce from a single well-placed decision. The average person focuses on activity. The millionaire focuses on direction. This is not an excuse for laziness. It's an invitation to understand that wealth is a product of thought before it is a product of labor. If you copy the hours of a millionaire without copying their thinking, you'll end up tired but not rich. The transformation begins in the mind, long before it ever shows in the bank account. The first mental shift you must make is to stop thinking of money as something you earn only by your own hands. This is how most people are trained to think. Work an hour, get paid for an hour. It feels fair, but it's a trap. Millionaires break this equation entirely. They seek ways to earn without their presence being required every second of the process. They build systems, invest in assets, create products, and structure deals so that value continues to be delivered even when they're asleep. This is why they can think bigger, because their time is not chained to their income. The average person asks, "How can I work more?" The millionaire asks, "How can I work once and get paid forever?" That one question shifts the entire game, because it forces you to think in terms of ownership, scale, and structure rather than constant personal effort. Another way millionaires think differently is in their relationship with problems. Most people avoid them, they complain about them, they see them as interruptions. Millionaires seek them out, but not just any problem. They look for expensive problems, problems that when solved release enormous value. The average person tries to get paid for the hours they work. Millionaires get paid for the size of the problem they solve. This is why some earn in a week what others earn in a year. It's not about harder work, it's about the strategic selection of challenges. When you start thinking this way, you begin to evaluate opportunities not by how easy they are, but by how meaningful their solutions will be. And when you solve meaningful problems, the market will reward you disproportionately. Millionaires also think in terms of multiplication, not addition. The average person asks, "How can I make more?" and then tries to add something on top of what they already do. This is a slow path. Multiplication asks, "How can this one action, this one investment, this one conversation create 10 results instead of one?" That means using resources more efficiently. It means leveraging networks, technology, capital, and partnerships so that each unit of input produces exponential output. This is why a single deal, a single product, or a single strategic decision can create more wealth in a day for a millionaire than a year's worth of extra work can create for someone else. They are not looking for more to do, they are looking for higher yield ways to do what matters. One of the most overlooked differences in thinking is how millionaires view failure. Most people avoid it at all costs, treating it like a final verdict. Millionaires see it as tuition. They expect it, plan for it, and use it. Every setback is a data point, and that data is worth money when applied correctly. This mindset frees them from paralysis and perfectionism. While the average person is still trying to figure out the perfect way to start, the millionaire has already tried, failed, learned, and adjusted several times. Over time, this speed of learning compounds. They get sharper, faster, more accurate with each move, and because they are willing to be wrong more often, they find the right moves sooner. Another mental distinction is in how they view risk. Most people think millionaires are reckless gamblers. In reality, the most successful are careful risk managers. They take risks that are calculated, asymmetric, and informed. They look for situations where the upside is far greater than the downside, and where the downside is survivable. The average person often takes risks without realizing it, staying in one job, relying on one source of income, ignoring financial education. These are all massive risks disguised as stability. Millionaires understand that standing still is often the riskiest move of all, so they act decisively when they find opportunities with strong potential and a controlled level of loss. Their thinking is not how do I avoid risk, but how do I structure risk so it serves me. Millionaires also think in terms of time differently. Most people think in hours and days. Millionaires think in decades. They are willing to plant seeds now that won't bear fruit for years because they understand the compounding effect of time on value. They are not addicted to instant gratification. They are addicted to long-term payoff. The average person wants to double their income this month. The millionaire asks how to multiply their wealth over the next 10 years, knowing that each smart move builds on the last. This perspective shapes every decision because when you think long-term, you choose differently, you invest differently, you act with patience and precision instead of desperation. Perhaps the most profound difference is that millionaires believe wealth is created in the mind before it exists in reality. They treat their thinking as their primary tool, refining it, challenging it, expanding it. They invest as much in their own education, relationships, and mental models as they do in their businesses. They know that a person with the right mindset can lose everything and rebuild it, while a person with the wrong mindset can be handed a fortune and lose it quickly. That's why their focus is always on becoming the kind of person who can attract, manage, and multiply wealth, because once you are that person, the results will follow almost inevitably. So if you think the path to wealth is simply about working longer and harder, you've missed the truth entirely. The secret is not in the hours, but in the thinking. Millionaires don't just do more, they do different. They see differently, choose differently, risk differently, and build differently. And once you begin to adopt their way of thinking, you stop asking, how can I work harder? And start asking, how can I think in a way that makes hard work produce extraordinary results? That is the real shift. That is the starting point for building a life that works for you, instead of one where you are constantly working for life. One of the first mental rewrites you must make if you want to think like a millionaire is to change your relationship with money itself. Most people think of money as something scarce, fragile, and difficult to come by, and because of that, they treat it with the mindset of survival rather than creation. They save only to protect against loss. They spend only in reaction to needs, and they invest timidly, if at all, because they view money primarily as something to hold on to. Millionaires see money as a tool, not a treasure. It's a vehicle for growth, leverage, and influence. They understand that money is a servant, not a master, and it must be put to work. Idle money loses value. Active money multiplies. They move it with intention into investments, businesses, relationships, and skills that expand its reach. They are not careless, but they are also not afraid to deploy capital where it can produce more than it costs. This one change alone, viewing money as an active force rather than a static possession, reframes every decision about earning, spending, and investing. Another shift is in how they value their time. The average person sees time as something to trade for money, hour by hour, shift by shift. Millionaires value their time in terms of return, not in terms of hours. They ask, what is the highest and best use of my time today, and focus relentlessly on that. They are willing to delegate or automate tasks that do not directly contribute to their goals. They understand that sweeping their own floor, filing their own paperwork, or micromanaging every detail might save money in the short term but cost them wealth in the long term. They operate with the awareness that time is the one resource that cannot be replenished, so it must be invested, not merely spent. Every choice is filtered through the lens of whether it moves them toward their long-term vision or distracts them from it. Millionaires also think differently about opportunity. The average person waits for the perfect opening, the right conditions, or an invitation to step forward. The millionaire creates opportunities where none seem to exist. They understand that opportunity is not always found. It's often made, crafted through initiative, resourcefulness, and a willingness to ask. They're not afraid to reach out, to propose, to negotiate, to start before they feel ready. They know that most people are waiting for someone else to go first, and by stepping forward, they often become the person who defines the terms. This is why their networks expand faster, their deals appear sooner, and their ventures scale quicker. They are not limited by the gatekeepers in their mind. There is also a difference in how they approach learning. Most people stop structured learning after school, picking up bits and pieces of knowledge passively. Millionaires are deliberate students. They read, study, and seek mentorship with the same urgency that others watch television or scroll through their phones. They are not afraid to pay for access to knowledge or to surround themselves with people who challenge their thinking. They understand that a single insight can redirect years of effort. They treat education as an investment with one of the highest returns possible, because new skills and new perspectives open doors that hard work alone cannot. And they don't learn just for the sake of knowing, they learn with the intent to apply. One of the more subtle but crucial differences is how millionaires view themselves in relation to their work. The average person identifies as a worker within a system. The millionaire identifies as the architect of the system. Even if they start within someone else's framework, they are studying it, seeing where it can be improved, where value can be added, where inefficiencies can be turned into advantages. They are thinking about ownership, equity, and control. They understand that while a worker earns a wage, an owner earns the rewards of the system's productivity. This mental positioning affects every career choice, every negotiation, every partnership. It pushes them toward situations where their decisions shape the outcome, not just their labor. Another powerful distinction lies in how they handle setbacks. Where most see obstacles as a stop sign, millionaires see them as a detour sign. The direction may change, but the destination remains. They have trained themselves not to overreact to temporary loss or failure because they understand that no single event defines the journey. They keep moving, adjusting strategy without abandoning the mission. This resilience is not built from arrogance, but from a deep belief that solutions exist and that they have the capacity to find them. This mindset keeps them from the mental clutter of despair and allows them to see openings where others see dead ends. They also think differently about relationships. The average person builds relationships mainly for companionship, comfort, or shared experience. Millionaires build relationships that are also engines of opportunity. They align themselves with people whose thinking stretches theirs, whose standards elevate theirs, and whose goals challenge theirs. This doesn't mean every connection is transactional. It means they are intentional. They recognize that your network is both a mirror and a magnet. It reflects your current thinking and pulls you toward its collective level. So they choose that network with care, understanding that proximity to the right people accelerates everything. And perhaps most importantly, millionaires think differently about identity. They do not wait until they achieve wealth to think like a wealthy person. They adopt the mindset, habits, and standards of their future self now and act accordingly. This identity-based thinking means that when a decision presents itself, they ask, what would the person I intend to become do here? And then they do it, even if it feels uncomfortable in the moment. Over time, this alignment between thought, action, and desired identity creates an almost inevitable momentum toward the life they've envisioned. It is not magic, it is mechanics, and it begins entirely in the mind. Millionaires see money as a byproduct of value creation, not just labor. This alone changes the way they approach each day. The average person asks, how can I earn more, and looks for a way to increase effort, hours, or tasks. The millionaire asks, how can I create more value for more people? They understand that money flows toward value, and value is multiplied when it solves a real problem for many, not just a few. This is why they think in terms of scale, building something once and delivering it 1,000 times instead of delivering it once for 1,000 hours. They know that if they can make their solution, product, or service more accessible, more efficient, or more effective, the market will reward them in proportion to the impact they create, not the sweat they expend. Another critical difference is how they view leverage. To the average mind, leverage means risk. To the millionaire's mind, leverage is a tool of acceleration. They understand that their own two hands, no matter how skilled, have limits. But capital, technology, systems, and teams can work when they sleep. They think of money as a worker, technology as a multiplier, and people as partners in creation rather than mere employees. The millionaire asks, how can this work without me? Not because they are avoiding responsibility, but because they are building systems designed to outlast their direct involvement. This is why their influence, income, and impact can grow even when their personal hours remain the same. Millionaires also think in terms of positioning rather than constant pursuit. Most people chase opportunities like a fisherman chasing fish with a net. Millionaires position themselves so that opportunities flow to them like a current. This means they invest in visibility, in credibility, and in reputation. They understand that one well-placed reputation can attract more deals than years of knocking on doors. They create conditions where their name is brought into rooms they aren't in, where introductions happen without them asking. And this positioning doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of consistently delivering excellence and building relationships that extend far beyond single transactions. One of the most overlooked traits of millionaire thinking is their ability to detach from the need for immediate emotional rewards. The average person often chooses what feels good now, even if it costs them later. The millionaire is willing to endure temporary discomfort for long-term gain. They will delay luxury if it means acquiring an asset. They will forego instant praise if it means building something that will stand the test of time. This delayed gratification is not about self-denial, it's about self-control. They understand that a single short-term indulgence can compromise a long-term vision, and they refuse to mortgage their future for the sake of the present moment. Another element of their thinking is how they approach problem-solving. Where most see a problem and stop, millionaires see an opportunity to innovate. They ask different questions. What's causing this? How can we solve it permanently? Who else has faced this and won? They look for patterns and solutions, systems that can be replicated, and ideas that can be improved upon. And because they don't shy away from complex challenges, they gain a reputation as someone who delivers where others fail. This reputation becomes a form of currency. People will pay more, trust faster, and commit deeper to those who consistently bring solutions. They also think expansively about their own growth. The average person will often improve just enough to handle their current role or situation. The millionaire improves far beyond the immediate requirement, preparing for opportunities that haven't even appeared yet. They learn skills that may not have an immediate payoff, knowing that when the moment comes, they'll be ready while others scramble. This proactive preparation creates a widening gap between them and those who wait for circumstances to force them to adapt. And when an unexpected opportunity arrives, they can seize it fully because they've already done the work. Millionaires think differently about fear as well. Most people treat fear as a stop sign. Millionaires treat it as a signal of potential growth. They ask, am I afraid because this is dangerous, or am I afraid because this is new? If it's the latter, they move forward deliberately. They understand that fear often disguises opportunity, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. This reframe allows them to step into situations others avoid, not recklessly, but with preparation and purpose, and to reap rewards that are invisible to those still standing on the sidelines. Perhaps the most profound difference is that millionaires think in terms of contribution, not just accumulation. They know that the most sustainable wealth comes from creating something that improves lives. This isn't just altruism, it's practical. Markets reward those who make things better, easier, faster, or more accessible. By focusing on contribution, they ensure that their work remains relevant, their reputation remains strong, and their income streams remain alive long after the initial effort is complete. This thinking also keeps them from stagnating. Because contribution is an infinite game, you can always find new ways to serve, and in doing so, you create new reasons for wealth to flow your way. Millionaires think differently about focus. Most people treat focus as something that happens when they have no distractions, as if it's a condition they must wait for. Millionaires treat focus as a decision, an intentional state they create by removing what does not matter. They don't just work harder on the same cluttered list of tasks. They work exclusively on the few activities that make everything else easier or unnecessary. They know that not all work has the same value, and they are ruthless in cutting away what doesn't move the needle. This is why they often appear to achieve more in less time, not because they're superhuman, but because they refuse to dilute their energy across low-value actions. They understand that in both life and business, the ability to concentrate force in one direction until the goal is achieved is the difference between average results and extraordinary outcomes. Another distinction is how they think about income streams. The average person relies on one, usually their job, and sees that as security. Millionaires see single-source income as vulnerability. They aim for multiple streams, not for the sake of variety, but for resilience and scale. These streams are often interconnected. Business profits feeding investments, investments funding new ventures, ventures expanding networks that bring more business. They design these streams to support and strengthen each other so that the failure of one does not compromise the whole, and they are built with intention, not accident. This means they are constantly scanning for ways to turn existing successes into new opportunities, thinking in terms of ecosystems rather than isolated wins. Millionaires also think about decisions in terms of opportunity cost, not just immediate reward. Most people see a yes or no as the only variables in a decision. Millionaires ask, if I choose this, what am I giving up? If I invest here, what other opportunity am I closing the door to? This kind of thinking prevents them from being seduced by shiny distractions or deals that look good but block greater possibilities. They know that every commitment consumes resources, time, energy, capital, focus, and they weigh each choice against what could be built instead. This long-term comparative approach to decision-making keeps them from trading their highest potential for temporary wins. Another mental pattern they reject is the idea that more effort always equals more result. Millionaires measure by effectiveness, not effort. They are willing to step back, think, and restructure before charging ahead. This doesn't mean they avoid work. It means they value the right work. They will spend hours refining a system that will save them years, or negotiate a deal that will eliminate the need for constant labor. They understand that thinking time is not wasted time. It's the highest leverage activity they can do. The average person often undervalues thinking because it doesn't look busy, but millionaires know that clarity and planning are what make action truly productive. They also think differently about problems they face personally versus problems the business or investment can solve. The average person takes every challenge on themselves, trying to be the answer to every question. Millionaires ask, who or what can solve this better than I can? This leads them to hire expertise, use tools, or create processes instead of burning themselves out. By removing themselves from the center of every solution, they create freedom and scalability. This mindset turns their role from constant doer into strategic driver, and it keeps their mind clear for the big decisions that truly require their attention. One of the more counterintuitive aspects of their thinking is their comfort with being misunderstood in the short term. The average person often makes decisions to be accepted immediately, to avoid standing out or inviting criticism. Millionaires know that many of their moves will not make sense to others until years later. They are willing to hold their course without external validation because they've learned that immediate approval is a poor predictor of long-term success. This is why they invest in things others call risky or work quietly on projects others can't see the value in yet. They understand that vision often looks like folly to those who don't share it. Millionaires also hold a different perspective on luck. Most people see it as random, something you either have or don't. Millionaires see luck as the intersection of preparation and opportunity. They position themselves in the flow of potential deals, markets, and relationships, and they stay ready to act when the door opens. This readiness, built from knowledge, relationships, and resources, turns chance encounters into game-changing events. They don't wait for fortune to arrive, they build the conditions that make it far more likely to show up. Lastly, millionaires think differently about growth. For many, growth is optional, something to pursue when there's extra time or energy. For millionaires, growth is non-negotiable. They know that the market changes, industries evolve, and skills decay without constant improvement. They set aside time and resources to keep learning, testing, and adapting. This is why they often stay ahead while others are catching up. They're not just reacting to change, they're anticipating it. And in doing so, they clear away one of the biggest sources of struggle, the mental clutter of being unprepared. Millionaires think differently about control. The average person often seeks to control everything they touch, holding tightly to every decision, every detail, every moving part. It feels safe, but it's actually a trap. It limits scale, slows progress, and clutters the mind with responsibilities that could be handled by others. Millionaires focus on controlling direction, not every step along the way. They delegate execution to capable hands, empower others to take ownership, and reserve their own energy for the choices that set the course. This creates a mind free to think strategically instead of being buried under the noise of constant operational decisions. It's not about letting go of responsibility. It's about elevating your role so your time and thinking are spent where they have the greatest return. Another mental distinction is how they view the relationship between money and emotion. For most people, money is deeply tied to fear. Fear of losing it, fear of not having enough, fear of making the wrong decision with it. Millionaires aim to detach from that fear by anchoring their financial decisions to logic, data, and long-term vision, rather than short-term emotional reactions. They understand that fear-based decisions tend to be defensive, reactive, and small. Logic-based decisions, even when uncomfortable, tend to be expansive, deliberate, and bold. This emotional discipline allows them to make moves that others avoid, buying when others panic, holding when others sell, stepping into markets that seem uncertain but are full of opportunity for those who can see past the immediate turbulence. They also think differently about energy. The average person spends energy as if it's unlimited, scattering it across low-value tasks, unnecessary conflict, and constant digital distraction. Millionaires treat energy like a finite resource, protecting it with the same care they protect capital. They ask, what drains me that I can remove? What fuels me that I can do more of? And then make adjustments accordingly. They design their days for peak mental performance, not for constant busyness. This means structuring work in blocks, building in recovery time, and surrounding themselves with people and environments that elevate rather than deplete them. By conserving and directing their energy strategically, they're able to sustain high performance without burning out. A major mental shift they've made is understanding the compounding effect of small, consistent actions. Many people chase dramatic one-time wins, big deals, sudden breakthroughs, overnight transformations. Millionaires understand that these moments are rare and that most wealth is built in the quiet accumulation of small, smart moves over time. They look for habits, systems, and investments that steadily build value without constant attention. They are patient enough to let these compounds work, knowing that the most powerful growth often happens out of sight until it becomes impossible to ignore. This patience is not passive, it's active stewardship, making sure the seeds they've planted are protected and nurtured until harvest. Another area where millionaires think differently is in their tolerance for uncertainty. The average person craves predictability and will avoid situations where the outcome is unknown. Millionaires accept uncertainty as the natural environment of opportunity. They don't need guarantees before they act. They need probabilities, contingencies, and the willingness to adapt. This mental comfort with not knowing allows them to step into spaces that scare others away, to test markets, launch ventures, and make offers that might not work but could lead to outsized gains if they do. Over time, they build not only skill but resilience, because each time they navigate uncertainty successfully, their confidence grows. They also think differently about consumption versus creation. While most people spend far more time consuming content, entertainment, opinions, millionaires bias heavily toward creation. They're focused on making things that can generate value, whether that's a product, a service, an asset, or intellectual property. This doesn't mean they never consume, they do, but it's intentional and often in service of creating something better. They understand that the creators set the terms, while the consumers live by them. Shifting into a creator's mindset turns your attention outward, asking what can I produce that others will find valuable, rather than what can I take in for myself. This one shift, consistently applied, changes the entire trajectory of a career or business. Finally, millionaires think differently about legacy. The average person is focused primarily on immediate needs, covering expenses, handling emergencies, enjoying life now. Millionaires keep those needs in mind but also extend their vision decades into the future. They ask, what am I building that will outlast me? What am I leaving behind that others can use, grow, and benefit from? This perspective changes the decisions they make today. It leads them to choose quality over speed, reputation over shortcuts, and sustainability over quick cash. Because for them, wealth is not only measured in what they accumulate, but in what continues to grow long after they've stepped away. Millionaires think differently about scalability. The average person often views growth as doing more of the same work, more hours, more effort, more repetition. Millionaires know true growth comes from building something that can operate and expand without requiring more of their personal energy at the same rate. They ask, if I double my effort here, will the return double, or will it stay the same? If the answer is the latter, they look for a better model. They design systems, products, and structures that allow revenue, influence, and impact to grow faster than their personal workload. This is why a well-built business, an automated process, or a leveraged investment can create exponential results while their own hours remain steady. They are not chasing the ceiling, they are building a ladder to something higher. Another way they think differently is in their approach to decision-making speed. Most people delay decisions, fearing the risk of being wrong. Millionaires value fast, informed decisions because they understand that indecision is often more costly than a wrong choice. They gather the necessary information, make the best decision they can with what they know, and then act. If they're wrong, they adjust quickly. This speed creates momentum, and momentum often produces results before slower movers have even begun. They know that perfection is an illusion, and that waiting for it allows others to take the opportunities that hesitation leaves behind. They also think differently about ownership, not just legal ownership, but mental ownership. When millionaires take on a project, they treat it as if the entire outcome rests on their personal commitment, even if they're not the only one involved. This mindset pushes them to care more, think deeper, and see further than someone simply completing a task. They look for ways to add value beyond what's expected because they see themselves as stewards of results, not just participants. This habit of over-delivering builds trust, opens doors, and sets them apart in a way that hustle alone never could. Millionaires think differently about discomfort as well. Most people avoid it, seeing it as a sign they're on the wrong path. Millionaires recognize it as proof they're on the edge of growth. They understand that expansion feels awkward because it requires you to operate outside the boundaries of what's familiar. They lean into that tension rather than retreat from it, using discomfort as a compass that points toward transformation. Whether it's negotiating a deal, entering a new market, or learning a skill they've never touched before, they know the edge is where breakthroughs happen, and they seek it deliberately. They approach competition differently too. The average person tries to outwork their competitors by matching them step for step in the same arena. Millionaires often sidestep direct competition entirely by changing the rules, innovating the offer, or targeting a different segment of the market. They ask, how can I make competition irrelevant, instead of how can I beat them at their game? This thinking shifts their energy from defense to creation, allowing them to set the pace rather than match it. They know that dominating a small, well-defined space can be more powerful than struggling for attention in a crowded one. Another critical difference is how they manage their attention. The average person allows attention to be scattered across urgent but unimportant demands, often living in reaction mode. Millionaires guard their attention as fiercely as they guard their capital. They know that where their attention goes, results follow. They batch decisions, eliminate trivial commitments, and design their days to minimize context switching. They also cultivate the discipline to be fully present in whatever they choose to do, whether it's a meeting, creative work, or rest. This focus compounds over time, turning hours into high-yield investments instead of wasted fragments. They also think differently about reinvestment. Many people, when they experience a gain, immediately upgrade their lifestyle. Millionaires may enjoy rewards, but they prioritize reinvesting in the assets, skills, and systems that generated the gain in the first place. They see each return not as an endpoint, but as fuel for the next stage of growth. This reinvestment cycle compounds their results and creates resilience, because their capacity to generate wealth increases with every round. They delay gratification not out of deprivation, but because they see the greater pleasure in scaling their engine before indulging in its spoils. Finally, millionaires think differently about their own adaptability. The average person often fears change, holding on tightly to what they know even when it's no longer serving them. Millionaires cultivate adaptability as a core skill, understanding that markets shift, technologies evolve, and strategies that worked yesterday can become obsolete tomorrow. They view adaptability not as a reaction but as a proactive habit, constantly scanning for signals, testing new approaches, and positioning themselves ahead of the curve. This willingness to evolve ensures that they are never trapped by their own success, but instead remain free to create it again and again under new conditions. Millionaires think differently about vision. The average person often sees their goals as something to work toward if circumstances allow. Millionaires treat their vision as non-negotiable. It's the guiding star for every decision they make. They don't wait for proof before believing in it. They commit to it fully and build their lives around it. This unwavering clarity gives them the confidence to move forward even when the path isn't clear, because they trust the destination. While others bend their vision to fit their current reality, millionaires bend their reality to fit their vision. They know that a blurred target is impossible to hit, so they keep their aim sharp and their focus fixed, regardless of temporary setbacks or distractions. Another way they think differently is in their ability to reverse engineer outcomes. The average person sets a goal and then hopes to figure out the steps as they go. Millionaires start at the finish line and work backward. They identify the exact conditions required for their goal to be real, then map those requirements into actionable steps. This reverse planning allows them to anticipate obstacles, allocate resources intelligently, and move with a level of precision that makes success far more likely. Because they've mentally walked the path from completion to starting point, they can move faster and with more certainty than those who are still guessing at the route. They also think differently about momentum. Most people let motivation dictate their output. They work hard when they feel inspired and slow down when the feeling fades. Millionaires build momentum deliberately, knowing it's easier to sustain progress than to start over repeatedly. They stack small, consistent wins to create a sense of inevitability about their goals. This momentum is protected fiercely. They don't allow long lapses to break it, and they use routines, systems, and accountability to keep it alive. They understand that once momentum is lost, it takes far more effort to rebuild than it does to maintain. Millionaires think differently about information. The average person collects it passively, often consuming more than they can process, leading to mental clutter. Millionaires seek information with purpose. They define what they need to know, find the best source, and then apply it immediately. This selective approach means their knowledge is always relevant, actionable, and tied to a clear objective. They don't measure their growth by how much they've consumed, but by how effectively they've used what they've learned. This is why they can make sharper, faster decisions while others drown in analysis paralysis. Another distinction is their relationship with accountability. Many people avoid it, fearing it will expose their shortcomings. Millionaires seek it out, knowing it accelerates progress. They align themselves with mentors, partners, and peers who will hold them to their word, challenge their thinking, and push them beyond self-imposed limits. This external pressure keeps their standards high and their performance sharp. They don't see accountability as criticism. They see it as a mirror that reflects the truth, allowing them to adjust before small issues become costly mistakes. They also think differently about identity and consistency. The average person tries to change by forcing new actions onto an old self-image. Millionaires change from the inside out. They adopt the identity of the person who already has the results they want, then act accordingly. This alignment between who they believe they are and what they do eliminates the internal resistance that often derails change. It's no longer a battle of willpower, it's simply acting in harmony with their identity. And because they live consistently with this identity, their results begin to match it almost automatically. Another critical difference is how they handle pressure. Most people see pressure as a threat and try to avoid it. Millionaires see it as a signal that something important is on the line. They welcome it because they know it sharpens focus, heightens performance, and reveals strengths that comfort would keep hidden. They prepare for pressure by building competence and rehearsing decisions in advance, so when high-stakes moments arrive, they can act decisively. Over time, they become comfortable operating in situations that would overwhelm others, and this comfort becomes a competitive advantage. Finally, millionaires think differently about their own evolution. They understand that the mindset and habits that created their current success may not be the ones that will create their next level. They are willing to challenge their own systems, question their own assumptions, and reinvent themselves entirely if the situation demands it. They don't cling to being right, they cling to getting better. This ability to continually upgrade their thinking ensures that their growth is never capped. And because they see personal evolution as part of the job, they remain relevant, resilient, and ready, no matter how much the world changes around them.